Good evening. The time is 6:32, and I'm calling to order the March 15th, 2023 Borough Council voting session. That was item number 1, which is our call to order. Before we move on to item 2, I just want to, just an order of business. If anybody speaks tonight at all, staff member, council member, person in the public, make sure you're speaking into a microphone. We've had some feedback about people listening into meetings and not hearing people. So if you're not speaking to a microphone, you are not being heard by anybody but people in this room. So, okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 2, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to have that led by Mr. Flynn. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 3, comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on the agenda. If anybody wishes to speak, come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 4, which is comments by the Borough Council and the Mayor. And I will start with Mr. McCoy.
Hi, everyone. I'll be short. Happy St. Patty's Day. Have fun and be safe.
Great, thank you. Ms. Vaccaro.
I just want to say that a lot is happening. We are starting to ramp up for the open air market starting May 5th. And there are new restaurants opening in town very soon. There's a lot of excitement and I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you. I want to echo the sentiments of my fellow Irishman over here and the one down there. And I just learned the mayor's got some Irish in her too, so that's good. So I just want to wish everyone a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day. But also, there was an article, and I don't know if we really touched on it, regarding the heroism of Officer Davis and how he saved that shooting victim that happened in Westchester University. And I think that's a testament to our police department, their training, and the investment that we've made. So if he's listening, again, thank you, and thank you to the Westchester Police Department for keeping us safe.
Great, thank you. Mr. Flynn.
Greetings from the sweetest ward in the borough, the 6th Ward. I'm going to plug out for Kilburn's Candy Store. I did buy one of their Irish potatoes today. Not as good as mine. I put a little bit of special syrup in mine, but they don't put that in theirs. But if you're going to drink on Friday, please drink responsibly and make sure you don't damage the borough, because I'll have to wind up fixing it. So happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I'll keep it to St. Patrick's Day again. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Dorsey.
Thanks, Mr. Stefano. Also want to wish everyone a happy St. Patty's Day, and wanted to piggyback off of Mr. McGinnis's comments. I wanted to recognize all of our public safety and public servants, particularly in fire, police, and EMTs. I know there have been some challenges this year. We've had some extraordinary circumstances with a shooting and an arson fire and some other things that our police, fire, and EMTs have had to address. And I just want to give them a shout out and say thank you for their service, because we rely on them quite a bit to keep us all safe. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor DeBaptiste.
Thank you, President. So, as everyone has said, I'm very proud of Officer Aaron Davis. It's a technique that they had just learned about called scoop and run, where he was able to scoop up the person and take him immediately to the hospital. So not only was there a wonderful article in the Daily Local News, thank you, Bill Ratu, for that, there was also a wonderful it was on what TV? ABC? 6 ABC on him as well. So we're just really pleased, and we hope to be seeing him here in Chambers and being honored him shortly. Again, the second thing I just want to say quickly is Westchester is gearing up for a lot of events coming. We are going to be welcoming back Porch Fest on May 20th. And we also have a new event coming in June called Juneteenth, which celebrates our journey toward freedom. So stay tuned for all of the information coming up on Porch Fest and Juneteenth. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I just have a couple things. One, I know it was mentioned last night, but the Goose Creek cleanup is March 25th, so next Saturday, next Saturday, right? So if you haven't signed up and you're able to help out, it's a really great event to help clean up the creek. The borough sponsors that and helps out with collecting the trash and providing some materials and equipment that are used for that. Like I said, I have a conflict. I can't be this year. I'm really bummed, but it's an amazing event that pulls out incredible amount of trash out of the creek, which is really depressing, but it's amazing that we were able to get it out of there every year. So by volunteers. So if you can sign up for that. I want to thank a couple people up here in the dais with me, the mayor and Vice President Dorsey, who helped out my wife at Fern Hill Elementary. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was, for an event where they honored some really powerful women. I think Carolyn Comita was there, and the interim superintendent, Dr. Kalia Reynolds, were there. So it was really cool. I know she was really grateful for you to attend that. And it was a great experience for the kids too. So thank you on that. And a shout out to the mayor. I was actually at an event this last Sunday with the Kennett Symphony. I took my son, and the mayor was one of the narrators for a story that went along with the song. You read Ferdinand the Bull, right? It was a really incredible program. So thank you for that, for the service for that. That was amazing. And my son really enjoyed that. And then lastly, St. Patty's Day is this weekend. Please drink responsibly. I worked in the bar business for half of my life. It is a crazy night and it can get out of control. So please just be responsible when you're celebrating the borough. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5, which is our sole discussion item A, which is approval of the 732/734 South Matlack Street preliminary land development. Looks like we have some of the plans up there. Mr. Gore's here, and I know, Mr. Allen, you were the one who requested to put this on discussion. If you want to maybe head it off with some comments.
Yeah, I think my experience on council so far has been we get preliminary land developments and we hear that it's preliminary and that things can change and we make comments, and a lot of the time they do, which is great. I just sometimes get concerned because I feel like there are times where, I or maybe someone else might have an issue with something. We say it's just preliminary. We move forward and we say it's not final. Then it maybe gets halfway better, but we don't fully address the issue. And then it just kind of feels like, well, I've already done so much work. It would feel really bad to, not continue to grant permission for this work to happen. And so I don't really feel like I need a lot of clarification. I'm interested to see what the next designs are going to look like, but I just put it on discussion because I wanted the opportunity to vote no today. And then we'll see what happens in the future. If we go with twins or something that looks better suited for that context, then great. But that's where I'm at.
Thank you. So for your issues, I know you mentioned last night something about the fact that it's a subdivision or a reverse subdivision, sorry, or is it more just that we don't like the design? And
to me, it's a combination of both.
Because I took a ride down there this just before the meeting just to take a look at it, and I agree. Like I said last night, that I think the facade really needs to be more in line with that area for sure. But I do see adding 2 extra dwelling units to town that is in need of housing to be a really big plus in our borough, right? So that for me is a plus. I do want to see some design changes. I also received some feedback from residents about parking issues. I don't feel those same concerns considering they're adding 2 car garages to each unit and extra parking in the back. And I went around the back of Mechanics Alley, and it's those properties go back pretty far. So there is a lot of space back there, which I think is great. But I know parking is always an issue, especially in my area of town. But Mr. Gore, anything to add to any of that?
I just addressed Mr. Allen's comments. and I'm not going to sway you from your vote one way or another. I have no skin in the game, but just from a matter of background, the Saldo ordinance does have design guidelines, which we enforce, but they're not really geared toward enforcing the architecture or the materials that are used in the facade. So as long as they're compliant with the ordinance requirements, zoning, and then obviously those other outstanding items that they're going to address in final, the facade is not really something that we could deny a plan for. But we can ask them to change it because it's a land development, and this developer has agreed to work with us, go back and change it. Most of them do, because they know that they're in the end that they need to get approval. But just that, that's how the process works.
Mr. Gore, you added your comment warranted a question from me around our ordinance and whether or not it's something that we should consider around including those things, architecture, facade, material, in our ordinance to help ensure that development projects are more in line with the aesthetic of the borough, the neighborhood, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the historic district, we regulate it. Outside of the historic district, I think that's something that we could look at. I think we'd have to talk to our solicitor to see what we can legally regulate as far as material or architecture, but I can definitely take that suggestion back and we can look at that. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so, and I know the question was brought up from my residents about limiting parking, like requirements in terms of not allowing them to be permit parking, not allowing them to use the garages for anything but parking a car in. But I know I did reach out to Ms. Camp, and she was pretty clear that that's legally, we can't do that. And I would agree. I mean, at some point, this is private property, and these residents are buying a house, and then you're telling them I can't store my whatever in my garage. I have to put a car there. I feel like we're getting a little overreaching impersonally, but so. Any other comments on this or thoughts? Mr.
I'm really happy about the parking plans. But I did last night going home, I just wanted to ask about if there's any option for more permeable surfaces than would typically be used. And if this is not the appropriate time to be bringing that up.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a question for the developer. I mean, they are compliant with the ordinance as far as impervious coverage. They're gonna have to comply with the stormwater ordinance and provide a stormwater management facility on site, which they're gonna be doing underneath of that parking area. But just from my own knowledge, that for a small development like this, those porous paving products do become a maintenance issue, especially when you have a smaller product such as this. But and we can certainly ask that question of the developer and see if they'd be willing to put something like that in.
I think this
And they're
this
here
particular
today.
area, it's worth bringing up. And thank you for all the other stormwater issues you're addressing already. So thank you.
So my only question, I know I asked about parking, but I didn't really hear a number of spaces that you're going to have in the parking behind it. After the two-car garage, because you have a potential of 4 bedrooms in each place. It's my understanding. So that could be 4 to 5 people, 3 to 4 cars in each place. So I guess my question is, other than the 2-car garage, how many parking spaces would there be?
So Mr. McGill did speak to this last night, and
What
I'll
was the
just.
number then?
So there's 4 additional parking spaces in we'll call it the parking area, the overflow parking area, which is seen right there on the plan. And then there are 2-car garages with each dwelling unit. Mr. McGill also did state, and he did state this at the planning commission meeting, that there would be enough room behind each garage to park 2 additional vehicles. So 2 inside the garage, 2 outside the garage. That's 4 per unit, and then the 4 overflow parking spaces. Correct. And we don't, the zoning ordinance does not base the parking requirement for single family dwellings on the number of bedrooms. It just says that you have to have 2 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit.
Is it appropriate to ask the developer if he has any idea on the average cost of these would be? Is that something we could ask? If he has any idea what it would possibly sell for, or you're going to list it for? And I know that, I mean, obviously you might not know exactly at this point, but
I don't have those, Wayne McGill, for those. You guys had my brother yesterday, so,
yeah. Thank you.
and we're on for St. Patrick's Day this week too, as you could tell by the red hair. At this point, we do not have pricing together on these. Obviously, market will dictate. And as we get through design of both the land development and the residences themselves, we will get there. So I don't have a hard number right now, and so it's really going to be flexible as best we can to try to get them sold. But yeah, as stated earlier, we had the same conversation at the Planning Commission as we did with this board last night, and again today, that we're definitely going to relook at that design. It was kind of an architect's rendering of it that was one way to skin the cat. But yeah, we agree that making it look more like 4 dwelling units versus one big building is kind of where we missed the mark. And we heard that loud and clear. We kind of had that internally too, in our conversations, but so our architect is working on it. I wasn't able to get anything together. He's been working on it since the Planning Commission, but he has to fit it into his workflow. So we hear you. And for the most part, we agree. And it really comes down to that big center piece that kind of throws the whole thing off. It makes it look like one giant structure as opposed to 4 individual residences. So we're there.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions for developer since he's up here? Yeah. Go ahead.
Are we strongly requesting something addressing front porches as well?
I would like to. I mean, if you go anywhere up that block or in that area, every house has a porch for the most part.
Yeah. The intention is what the guidance we gave our architect was to take that center section, remove that center section that lifts up into the roof, and then create a continuous front porch across the 2 center units with some sort of, we'll create some sort of architectural divide there so that you can see, so it doesn't look like one giant center unit with 2 end units. And then the 2 end units have decent sized front porches on them. There's just not really room to make it much bigger or wrap around the side. So we think we want to handle that front porch architecture within the full center section of the building, which would be, I think those 2 units in the center are 22-foot wide units. So that would be 44 foot of porch across there.
Great.
Which will definitely change the look for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I greatly appreciate that. I do want to just say sort of out loud and on the record that living in a house with a front porch is an experience that people who do not have front porches and live, say, connected to their neighbors or very close by don't understand. So frequently architects and developers don't live in that style house and don't live in a community with connected houses. When we're paying top dollar for twins, that experience of living on your front porch, I have no idea where you live, so please don't take this personally, but it's something that we're trying to uphold, I think, is that sense of community that creates. That's all.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially just by the nature of the design where, everybody's going to pull into the back, right into their garage and right in. And then where's community, right? Where's neighborly interaction? I just got in the middle of one today over 2 people where a fence blew down in a house we built and and they didn't talk to each other. They just started calling us. It's like, guys, you're neighbors. A fence blew down. Figure it out. So no, so I agree with what you're saying. And we looked at it too. And just that whole concept, you pull in the back, you pull around the back of your house but hopefully in the borough with walkability that those front porches will get used. The reason people are there is then they take a nice walk up Walnut Street to the restaurants and away we go.
Yeah.
So we've heard you loud and clear. We take it seriously. We do want you guys to be as happy with the project and the design as possible. Knowing we can't do everything, but we're going to try our darndest to find a happy medium where everybody feels that they were listened to. And we're going to take in what we can.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that. Any other questions or comments?
No, I just believe that we should move forward with this. I believe you understand the conditions, and then we could always deny the next steps if we don't feel that they've been met. So I would like to move forward. I think you understand what we'd like to see.
Yep, we understand clearly, and moving forward helps us because it helps us move to finalize things as opposed to living in idea land. And we can start to really, when we move to final plan, a lot of other things then become finalized, and we can focus our efforts on the last few things that are outstanding.
Thank you. Yeah, and it makes me feel better that the planning commission is already had the same thoughts before we even got to us. So Mr. Metro.
Thank you for, I got a couple emails and since we have the developer here, I thought it'd be good to get it answered. Since it looks like it's going to be, since you're doing a reverse subdivision, you're going to have 4 units. It looks like there'll be a common area designated outside of the buildings. So what's the plan for maintenance of the common areas, if I have that correct?
For lack of a better term, yeah. I mean, there's going to be commonly owned, jointly owned space in the rear yard and the rear parking areas. So that will all be handled with a small association. So it's a shared maintenance that will then, and based on the Planned Unit Communities Act, all of that paperwork and legal will be about this thick to get everybody to agree to share the cost of maintaining the driveways in the yard.
And putting an association is required because it's 4 units together. It has to be, you have to have an.
Just by the nature of the real estate, all real estate has to be owned. So the units will basically be condominiums for real estate term, meaning that the building, the lot per se is really the encapsulation of the 4 walls in the building, and then you're left with the remaining area, and that parcel will be owned jointly with a homeowners association
Understood.
or condominium association.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
And the rules governing all of that get recorded at time of land development that govern how the association behaves, who gets elected to it, how decisions are made, and that runs in perpetuity with I'm kind of trying to lead the witness here so everybody understands. It gets maintained in perpetuity regardless of how ownership changes on the lots. Is that correct?
Correct. The way that gets governed is it runs with the deed, for lack of a better term. So once you're in, your deed is associated with that agreement. So if these sell and transfer, the responsibility sell and transfer to the property owner. It's not uncommon. We do it all the time, all day, every day. It's, almost any type of land development plan anymore has some sort of association, even if we're subdividing 4-acre lots, because they end up with some sort of joint stormwater management or shared driveway, shared roadway. It could be a lot of different things. But the governance all and Pennsylvania state law all falls back to running with the deed.
Okay. Mr. Flynn.
I only got one question. Since it's going to be a condominium type of situation, trash and snow removal will be on the owners, because our trash people won't be able to go to the back of the property to get it unless they drag everything out.
Snow removal for sure. Trash, I haven't really dug into that too deeply, but obviously that will be something
Our
that will.
trash trucks won't go in, I believe, won't go into private property to pick up trash. They'll stay in the common area, so they'd have to drag their cans all the way out to Mechanics Alley. So as far as the condominiums is concerned, just like High Point at Shanahan, we provide police and fire and building and housing inspections, but they're responsible for the repair of their roads, because it's their road, and their trash and recycling and stuff and snow removal. So since that's going to be a condominium type of situation, I would think that would be in the documents, because our trash truck won't go on private property.
Yeah, you're correct. The trash truck won't go in there. Those 4 homes, they could be serviced by the borough. We could pick up their trash if they were to bring it out to the alley for pickup. So if that was part of the HOA agreement, that's where it has to be placed, then we will certainly pick it up.
Yeah.
But you make a great point that
Well, that's the first time
it
you've
is a
ever
little
said
bit
that.
of a.
In all these years, it's the first time you ever said that. It's a recording, right?
This, no, we should
Okay,
check. We
all
should
right.
go back and check all the other recordings.
Dana will delete that tomorrow.
But I mean, that's something that the HOA would have to work through depending on what they want to do. But if they so chose to put it out there, we would pick it up.
So is there an application that they have to do? I mean, it's just not going to happen, especially when people move in. There's going to be a lot of boxes and stuff like that. So is that part of the Mr. Allen's thing that we kind of like?
No,
missed?
I think that's something we can discuss with the final land development, the next planning commission meeting. We can certainly discuss how they want to handle the trash pickup. Absolutely.
That's a good
mean,
question. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it definitely should be thought of ahead of time, as opposed to, so you guys deal with me as opposed to 4 new residents. And I understand that doing this as long as I have. So let me think about that. Let me get some numbers from some private carriers we use in similar situations. Then we'll make a decision, and we'll either put a note on it'll definitely end up in the homeowner's documents one way or the other, but we'll make a final decision on that as we submit the final plans, and not burden 4 new homeowners with that decision coming in here and talking.
Not being a resident of the borough, you don't understand our taxing program, but we don't actually charge, it's built into your property tax. We don't actually charge extra for trash pickup or recycling pickup. It's built into your yearly property property taxes. So that's where the difference is.
I have multiple investment properties in the borough, so I'm familiar
We
with it.
inspect them on a regular basis?
You do. We're actually doing them this week.
Okay, thank you.
So
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Anybody from the public? No? Okay. All right.
I do have my engineer, Chuck Dobson from Inland Design here too, if anybody had any technical questions, but otherwise, leave the engineers out of it. They work hard enough.
If there's no further discussion, then I think a motion to accept this would be appropriate.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Second?
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve our sole discussion item A. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Metric, you may call the question.
Mr. Flynn? Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
No.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Ms. Dorsey?
No.
Mr. Stefano?
Yes, motion carries 5-2. Yes. Yes, we're on item 6, consent agenda, and a motion has been made to accept it as presented. Correct, Mr. Flynn? Is that good? Okay.
And I will second that.
And it has been seconded. Any further? We do have some discussion from the public. I'll allow it. Mr. Lorgus.
Good evening, Borough Council. Eric Lorgus, 117 East Spittle Street. So last night, Barbara and I had a conversation after the meeting, and it turns out I misinformed you about this prior period adjustment. It happened in the year 2020, but it was pretty big. And I still have a question about it. I don't understand what happened here, but it says the beginning fund balance of the general fund decreased from negative 2.2 million to negative 7.2 million. That's a prior period adjustment that happened in 2020, meaning it really happened in 2019. And anytime there's a prior period adjustment, it deserves attention, but this is an enormous one. So that's one thing that is an area of concern. And then Bernie, excuse me, was explaining how there was a surplus of $2 million and it was put in the capital reserve fund.
I lost a bet, which
Okay.
really annoys me. What I did, and you know what? It's going to be fun to eat lunch with Mr. Largus. I combined 2 items into one that went into the capital reserve, which came out to be, instead of $2 million that we had extra, it was like 1.7 million. So, but half of it was from a surplus. And shortly after that, we put Barclay Square money back in there, and we got refunded from Barclay Square. And to Mr. Largis's point, he said this is one of the first times he's ever seen council put money back into the capital reserve instead of taking it out. But we're going to have a very lovely lunch because my numbers were slightly off.
Well, it was his idea to bet. Okay, I took it, you know?
It was the Irish Derby coming up.
So anyway, so really, to me, there are two issues here. Number one is that, you know, what was going on behind the curtain that created, you know, the big $2 million problem in 2016, and then this prior period adjustment just a few years ago. So that's one. But then the issue you're voting on tonight is actually to write all this off. Okay, and I'm going to opine here that I feel some of this is justified, but I don't feel there should be any write down of the sewer fund. And I'm not even sure about the highway, the liquid, isn't the highway fund the liquid fuels fund? Isn't that what that is? Okay. So that is a restricted fund. Money that goes into there comes from the state and can only be spent for certain purposes. And I don't understand how the general fund owes the highway fund $450,000. But anyway, it's your decision. I just feel I need to speak up because as a taxpayer, I have a great deal of concern about how this large balance that's due to the sewer fund from the general fund was created. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Cook, were you going to comment on the consent agenda or no? You moved up. I didn't. No? Okay. All right. So we have a motion made and seconded to accept the consent agenda. Mr. Metric, would you please call the question?
Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. McCoy,
Yes.
Ms. Dorsey,
Yes.
Mr. Stefano.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to item 7, which is other business. Is there any other business? Mr. Cook.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. Is there a hearing May 26th
Is there a hearing May 26th?
for the Burger King property?
Mr. Gore, are you?
Excuse me, March 26th.
Oh, March 26th? Not with us. Is it with Planning Commission or something? Or I'm not aware of the schedule for that other entities.
There's no hearing scheduled. There's a planning commission meeting where it would be presented for the first time at the planning commission.
Okay, and that's March
March,
26th?
yeah.
Probably, okay. So that 28th, is it? Okay.
Is there something else you were talking about with a hearing?
At the Planning
Okay.
Commission, okay.
Mr. Gork, at the planning commission meeting for that, will they show a elevation or renderings of the property?
There,
Because a
there's,
lot of people are complaining or there's a lot of misinformation out there and, you know, it just, they want to know how they're going to put 125 apartments on that little lot there with businesses and parking and all that nonsense.
there's no architectural renderings. There are elevations that show section views. So, but it's not in great detail. It's just like cut sections of the building that show the floor levels. So people will be able to determine, you know, how the parking is layered and the first floor retail and then the apartments above.
Yeah, it's not mainly from the people that live in the borough. It's amazing, our neighbors from West Goshen and East Goshen and West Town that, you know, really are concerned about the corner of 52 and High Street. And, you know, I'm interested to see what it's going to look like myself, but I'm sure that's why the tree came down too, because it wouldn't fit where those buildings are going. Thank you.
Bernie, if our neighbors want to talk about 52 and High Street, I know some neighbors who would love to talk about it.
Bring them in, like you did last night, the other time with Price Street. And I'd like to see where we got with that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business?
Yes, Mr. Gore, while you're here, I just wanted to mention on the Davis property, the fencing is not.
Yep. I've reached out to them last week and I'm not pleased that they have not been very responsive. So they're going to get a not so nice notice from us.
Clean up,
I know. Yeah, I was disappointed when I was over there the other day.
Okay.
Any opportunity for any fines or anything to apply?
I'm sorry.
Any opportunity for any fines or anything to assess?
Let me evaluate that. You're welcome.
Okay. Any other business? All right. No other business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.